One of my favorite things to talk about on the channel is the NFL draft, and the only way I can really do it during the season is through mock draft. We did a preseason mock draft a couple of weeks ago, but now that the season is almost halfway over, I feel like it's worth taking a look at a mock draft and seeing who the top prospects are, who's come out of nowhere, and where some of these guys could potentially land in the NFL. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and talk about a 2025 midseason mock draft. Okay, so we're going to use DraftWire for this one, as I think they're one of the better sites when it comes to NFL draft coverage, so I'm going to leave a link down below so you can check out the article and their other content. Okay, so at number 32, they have the Philadelphia Eagles selecting Kenyon Sadiq, a tight end from Oregon. He's a guy I've been hearing about for a couple of years now, as he came out of Idaho Falls, Idaho, which is super unique, and he ended up becoming a top 100 recruit as well, and he was part of the class of 2023. As a freshman, he didn't do much, and last year he was decent, but so far in 2025, he already has 15 catches for 204 yards and 3 touchdowns, and combining that with his athleticism makes him a trendy pick for the NFL, and he could be the top tight end prospect in 2026. At number 31, they have the Buffalo Bills selecting Connor Lew, an interior offensive lineman from Auburn. Offensive line is obviously a super important position in the NFL, and Lew is one of those guys who everyone thinks will translate. At 6'3" and over 300 pounds, he comes out of Kennesaw, Georgia, and he was a blue chip recruit at one point. After being an all-freshman in 2023, he was even better last year, and so far he's off to a great season, and many believe he will easily do well in the NFL. At number 30, the San Francisco 49ers will grab another weapon in Denzel Boston from Washington. Boston also has a very interesting story, as he would come out of Emerald Ridge High School in Washington and was considered a 3-star recruit and barely a top 150 receiver in his class. Boston has made a lot of scouts look foolish, as so far through his 4 years at Washington, he has 89 catches for 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. So far in 2025, he has 19 catches for 275 yards and 3 scores, and he's a guy that the NFL is excited to watch. Texas Tech poured a lot of money into their football program, and they got a couple of big players, including David Bailey, who they expect the Chargers to take at pick number 29. Going back in time, Bailey was always a huge prospect, as he ended up committing to Stanford and was ranked as the number 34 overall player, according to 24/7 Sports. Bailey ended up spending 3 years with the Cardinal before he transferred to Texas Tech this past season, and he was ranked as a top 15 overall transfer. He has 8 tackles and 3.5 sacks, and many believe that he projects very well to the NFL. Up next, we have our second offensive lineman off the board, and that is Caleb Lamu, an offensive tackle from Utah, and he'll be headed over to Detroit. Ranked as the number 14 offensive tackle in the class of 2023, he came out of the state of Arizona and has been a great 3-year starter for the Utes so far. He's once again having a good season in 2025, is expected to make an easy transition over to the NFL. At pick number 27, the Pittsburgh Steelers will grab a corner out of Clemson by the name of Avion Terrell. He's obviously the younger brother to AJ Terrell, who is incredible for the Clemson Tigers, and just like him, after a terrific career at Westlake High School in Atlanta, he would go to Clemson. He's listed as a 3-star recruit on some sites, and so far during his 3 seasons at Clemson, he's totaled 99 tackles, 2 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions, and 22 pass deflections. He was supposed to go in the first round in the preseason, and he is staying in the first round as of now. In front of Terrell, we have another player who had a big-time brother, as Lorenzo Styles' brother Sonny Styles is now projected as a first-round pick. The Colts will be selecting him at pick number 26, and coming out of high school, Styles is listed as a 5-star recruit and the number 2 safety in the class of 2022. He came out of Pickerington, Ohio, and so far in his 4 years, Styles has 182 tackles, 6 pass deflections, 8 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles, and he could have gone off last year, but has come back and already had a monster season this year, and he was a guy who was coming to the first round sort of out of nowhere. At pick number 25, we have our 3rd straight defender, as Tampa Bay will select edge rusher from Penn State, Danny Dennis Sutton. I've been hearing about this guy for quite some time, as coming out of the McDonough School in Maryland, Sutton was a 5-star recruit as well, and ranked as the number 28 overall player in the class of 2022. So far, during his 4 years at Penn State, he's totaled over 100 tackles, 7 pass deflections, 17 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, and 2 interceptions. He's a do-it-all defender and hopes to be the next great edge rusher and a great lineage at Penn State. At pick number 24, we get to talk about our first quarterback of the day, and that is Garrett Nussmeier, who will be headed to the Los Angeles Rams. Going back in time, Nussmeier was a 4-star recruit coming out of Flower Mound, Texas, and he ended up waiting a bit behind Jaden Daniels, but then he got his turn in 2024, and he made the most of it. He ended up passing for over 4,000 yards and 29 touchdowns, and elected to come back and have a better 2025 season. Originally projected as a top 5 pick, he's only thrown for 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns this year, and has had a couple of mid performances, so now he's considered to go in the back half of the first round instead of the top 10, but Nussmeier is still a super talented player who has nearly 7,000 yards and 50 touchdowns in his LSU career. Right ahead of Nussmeier, we will have the Seattle Seahawks taking Keith Abney, a corner from Arizona State. I gotta be honest, this is the first time I'm really hearing about Abney, as he was not a projected first round pick in the offseason. Going back in time though, he was considered a 3-star recruit and the number 108 athlete in the class of 2023. He was one of those underrated Texas gems, and so far through his 3 seasons at Arizona State, he has 70 tackles, 14 pass deflections, 1 sack, 1 fumble, and 5 interceptions. He already has 5 pass breakups in 2025, so he is surging up the boards as a corner, and I think Abney II will be a household name here soon. We now get to our second wide receiver, as the Cleveland Browns will select Makai Lemon from USC. I guess it was just a matter of time before Lemon blew up, as originally he was considered a 5-star recruit, but would dip to a high 4 by the end of the 2023 cycle. He went to Los Alamitos High School and was part of the class of 2023. Lemon had a good season in 2024, catching 52 passes for 764 yards and 3 touchdowns, but this year he is already on a tear with 35 catches for 589 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he is really helping out Jade Mayava. He has nearly 100 catches and 1,500 yards and 8 touchdowns through 3 years at USC, and it looks like he's going to continue to get better and may climb even higher. Up next, we get another defensive player, as Caleb Banks, a defensive tackle, is projected to go to the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys do need some more help on the defensive line, and they will get that in Banks. Coming out of Southfield High School in Michigan, he was only considered a 3-star recruit and would originally arrive at Louisville. Banks was solid during his 1 season at Louisville in 2022, and then he became a 4-star transfer and would end up at Florida. For his 2 seasons in Gainesville, he has 40 tackles, 1 pass deflection, and 5.5 sacks to go alongside a fumble. At 6'6", he has great size for an interior defensive lineman, and Banks is one of those guys you know exactly what you're going to get out of him and would be a good pick for the Cowboys. Staying on the defensive line, we get to my personal favorite edge rusher in this year's class, Keldrick Falk. They have the Kansas City Chiefs selecting him at pick number 20, and this would be a great pickup for them. Coming out of Highland Home High School in Alabama, Keldrick was a top 100 recruit and was considered one of the top players in the nation. So far through his 3 seasons on the Plains, Falk has over 91 tackles with 5 pass deflections and 10 sacks. He's off to a little bit of a slower start in 2025, and that's because teams are literally scheming around him. I think Falk will have a great end of the season and is someone the NFL is going to wish they drafted higher. At pick number 19, we have the consensus number 1 running back in this year's class, Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame. The Bengals will be getting a big-time player in Love as he comes out of Christian Brothers College in St. Louis and was considered the number 5 running back and a top 100 player in the class of 2023. Originally stuck behind Audric Estime, Love blew up in the 2024 season, rushing for 1,200 yards and 17 touchdowns. He got off to a somewhat slow start in 2025, but now he's getting up to speed as he has nearly 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, and so far in 3 years with the Irish, he has 1,800 yards and 23 touchdowns, while also catching nearly 50 passes for 500 yards and 6 scores out of the backfield. He checks a lot of boxes for what the NFL is looking for in a running back, and Love would be a great selection. At pick number 18, we have one of the most unique players in this year's draft class, and that is Jermond McCoy. He's a corner from Tennessee, and he'll be headed to the Minnesota Vikings. After coming out of White House High School in Texas, he was considered a 3-star recruit, and McCoy would end up arriving at Oregon State. The Beavers found a gem, as in 2023, he had 7 pass deflections and 2 picks to go along with 31 tackles. He was considered a 4-star transfer, and last year with the Vols, he finished with 44 tackles, 7 pass deflections, and 4 interceptions. He has pretty much everything the NFL is looking for in a corner, but the big question mark surrounding him is his health. He's been injured for the entirety of the 2025 season, and no one really knows when he will get on the field. This is definitely an interesting situation to monitor, but for now, he has first-round level talent. At pick number 17, we have a new name in the first round, and that is Arvell Reese, a linebacker from Ohio State, and he would be headed to the Arizona Cardinals. Back in the class of 2023, Arvell was considered a 4-star recruit and the number 18 linebacker, and he came out of the Cleveland area. Arvell didn't get a chance to play as a freshman, but in 2024, he ended up finishing with 43 tackles and half of a sack. This year he's become an even better player, as the freak of nature has 25 tackles with 2 pass deflections and 2 sacks, and in total has about 70 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and 2 PDs. Arvell also has incredible athleticism, and he seems like one of those high-risk, high-reward players in the first round. We now get another wide receiver off the board, as Carnell Tate will be headed over to Washington with the number 16 overall pick. It's no secret the Buckeyes have been producing a ton of big-time receivers, and Tate was always going to be next up. Coming out of IMG Academy, he was considered a 5-star recruit and the number 3 receiver in the class of 2023, and Tate started to emerge in 2024 with 52 catches for 700 yards and 4 touchdowns. So far in 2025, Tate has 15 catches for 252 yards and 3 touchdowns, and I'd like to see a little bit more out of him, but he is definitely going to go in the first round when it's all said and done. Hard to believe we're over halfway through the mock draft now, and at pick number 15, we have Caden Proctor going to the Chicago Bears. He's an offensive tackle from Alabama, but that's not originally where he was supposed to go. He went to Southeast Polk High School in Des Moines, Iowa, and originally committed to the Hawkeyes, but would end up flipping to Bama. The 5-star recruit then flirted with transferring back to Iowa, but had a whole weird saga go on there, and at the end of the day, ended back up at Bama, and after starting 3 years, the 6'7" offensive tackles could be considered one of the top linemen in this year's draft class, and will really help out the Bears in that case. LSU had an incredible transfer portal haul in 2025, and at pick number 14, one of those guys, Mansour Delane, will end up with the Los Angeles Rams. Delane is a corner, and coming out of Archbishop Spalding High School in Maryland, Delane ended up being a 3-star recruit, and would end up at Virginia Tech. After playing 3 years for the Hokies, he became a 4-star transfer, and so far with LSU, he has 20 tackles with 4 pass deflections and an interception, and he's played lockdown defense. He's an extremely productive player, as he has 166 tackles, 20 pass deflections, 4 fumbles, and 7 interceptions. Delane is a name flying up draft boards, and someone you need to know about. One of the best stories of the 2026 draft class has to be Chris Brazzell II. Coming out of Midland Legacy High School in Texas, Brazzell is just a 3-star recruit. He wasn't even ranked inside the top 1,000 players in the class of 2022, and now he's supposed to go at pick 13 to the Broncos. He would arrive at Tulane, where alongside Michael Pratt, he was very productive in 2023, catching 44 passes for 711 yards and 5 touchdowns. He then became a 4-star transfer and ended up at Tennessee, who's been producing really well at the receiver spot. So far through his 2 years there, Brazzell has about 50 catches for just under 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns, but he's really taken off in 2025, as he's near the top of pretty much every statistical category for receivers and is the number 1 option for the Vols. He would be a great pick into the NFL. At pick number 12, the Patriots get a big-time edge rusher in TJ Parker from Clemson. Parker is one of those players who was always supposed to be good, as he was considered a borderline 5-star recruit coming out of Central High School in Alabama. Parker arrived at Clemson with a lot of hype, and so far through 3 years, he has 103 tackles with 3 pass deflections, 18.5 sacks, and 6 forced fumbles. TJ Parker absolutely makes big plays, and while his 2025 season has been a tad bit underwhelming, he still should be a top 15 pick. One of the huge names from last season was Jordan Tyson, as he helped Arizona State football get put back on the map, and now he's projected to go at pick number 11 to the Dallas Cowboys. Coming out of Allen High School in Texas, Tyson was only considered a 3-star recruit and would originally have to go to Colorado. After playing just 1 season in 2022, he would transfer to Arizona State, where he wouldn't play until 2024. He caught 75 passes for 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns last year, and so far in only half the season, he already has 39 catches for 483 yards and 7 touchdowns. Tyson just might be the best receiver in college football right now, and he'll bring his 136 catches for 2,000 yards and 21 touchdowns to the NFL that could really use him. Flying into the top 10, we have one of the craziest prospects in Jennings Dunker. He's an offensive lineman who's now projected to go to the Houston Texans by way of Iowa, and the Hawkeyes always produce big-time linemen. Going back in time though, he ended up coming out of Lena Winslow High School in Illinois and was only considered a 3-star recruit. Iowa does a great job at developing offensive linemen, and so far in 2025, he's been absolutely incredible, and he has pretty much everything the NFL is looking for in terms of a lineman, so he'll be a great pick for the Texans. Speaking of big-time offensive linemen, we have another one at pick number 9, as Francis Mauigoa will end up going to the New York Giants. He's a big-time player for the Miami Hurricanes, and he was a 5-star recruit coming out of IMG Academy. He's been a starter the last couple of years, and there's not much to say about him. He's been considered the top offensive tackle prospect for a couple of seasons now, and he is right where he should be. Unlike his older brother DJ, Matayo Uyunglele is actually living up to his recruiting hype. Coming out of high school, Matayo was considered a blue-chip recruit, as he also came from St. John Bosco High School located in California. He was considered a top 50 player in the class of 2023, and so far through his 3 seasons at Oregon, he's had 67 tackles, 5 pass deflections, 16.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and an interception. He's a key playmaker on Oregon's defense, and he has everything the NFL is looking for in one of those hybrid linebacker edge rusher. Our third brother player on the list is Caleb Downs. He's supposed to go at pick number 7 to the Las Vegas Raiders, and after following in the footsteps of his older brother Josh Downs, who was a receiver for North Carolina and the Colts, Caleb became a 5-star recruit, and the Mill Creek product arrived at Bama. He had an incredible freshman season in which he had over 100 tackles and 3 pass deflections, and then transferred over to Ohio State. He had 81 tackles last year, and so far he hasn't been as productive this season, but he's still arguably the second best defensive player in all of college football right now, and has over 200 tackles and 9 pass deflections during his career. Pick number 6 to the Baltimore Ravens, they have Peter Woods. He's a defensive lineman for the Clemson Tigers, and coming out of Thompson High School in Alabama, Peter Woods was considered a 5-star recruit on some site. The Alabama product would arrive at Clemson, and so far through 3 years, he has 67 tackles, 3 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles, but he's an interior offensive lineman, so the stats don't really do the talking. He's been projected as a top 10 pick for quite some time, and I believe that's where he'll end up landing. At number 5, we have our second Utah offensive lineman in Spencer Fano, who will be headed over to the Miami Dolphins. Fano was also a big-time recruit, as coming out of Timpview High School, the top 50 recruit has been really good so far in his 3 years at Utah, and he has everything the NFL is looking for in terms of an offensive lineman. The quiet surprise at the quarterback spot of the 2025 season so far has been Dante Moore. He's now projected to go at pick number 4 to the Cleveland Browns, and going back in time, this made a lot of sense, as coming out of MLK High School in Detroit, Dante Moore was a 5-star recruit and the number 3 quarterback in the country. After originally committing to Oregon, he would flip to UCLA, where he sort of had an up-and-down freshman year. He threw for 1,600 yards and 11 touchdowns, but would then transfer to Oregon ahead of the 2024 season. He pulled a Kyler Murray and sat out a year behind Dillon Gabriel, and so far this year, he's been incredible. He's thrown for 1,200 yards with 14 touchdowns and only has 1 interception. He also has an incredible win against Penn State in the whiteout, and it seems like Dante Moore is following the same script that both Dillon Gabriel and Bo Nix followed, and there's a good chance that Moore will climb even higher and potentially be the number 1 overall pick. At number 3, we have the Tennessee Titans selecting Ruben Bain from Miami. He's considered the best player in all of college football, and coming out of the prestigious Miami Central High School, Ruben Bain was a top 100 recruit in the class of 2023. Through his 3 years at Miami, he's been nothing short of incredible. He has 89 tackles, 13 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 1 interception, and 2 pass deflections. He's already having an incredible season for the Canes this year, and is the can't-miss defensive prospect in the 2026 class. At pick number 2, we have the high-risk, high-reward quarterback in Lenoris Sellers. He would be headed to the New York Jets, and after being a 4-star recruit who flipped around between a couple of schools, Lenoris Sellers would end up at South Carolina. He played sparingly as a freshman, but last year took over and threw for 2,500 yards and 18 touchdowns. He's one of those players that makes incredible plays, seemingly has the it factor, and is super athletic, and that's why the NFL scouts are in love with him. He has been battling an injury so far in 2025, but I would say Sellers is the most exciting quarterback prospect, and he already has 3,500 yards and 34 touchdowns in his 2 years as a starter. And finally, at number 1, we have quarterback Fernando Mendoza. I still think this is a bit of a stretch, even as an Indiana fan myself, but the New Orleans Saints would end up getting Mendoza. After being a 2-star recruit and a Yale commit, Fernando would get a late offer from Cal and ended up being a good player in his year and a half as a starter there. He passed for about 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns for the Golden Bears and transferred to be with Coach Sig and his younger brother at IU. So far through the first few games of the season, Mendoza has 1,200 yards with 16 touchdowns and only 1 interception. He's 6'6", has a good arm, and many scouts believe that if he can just put it all together, he could be a franchise quarterback. I still think there's a lot for him to clean up, and I would not want him going number 1 overall, but Mendoza definitely has the ability to be an NFL quarterback. In today's video, we went through DraftWire's recent update for their 2026 mock draft, talked about who the players were, and what do you guys think? Who's your favorite draft prospect for 2026? What did they get right and wrong? And who is a name I need to know? Be sure to let me know down below. Leave a like if you support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.